This time, on episode 249 of Legends of S.H.I.E.L.D., we talk Legion Chapter 13, we talk weekly Marvel news, and we talk your feedback.
I'm Joe Burke from PopXcast, a proud member of the Gonna Geek Network, just like the show you're listening to now. The opinions expressed are those of each individual host. Check out all of our podcasts at GonnaGeekNetwork.com and get ready because geekiness begins in 3, 2, 1.
You have been granted clearance by Director Phil Coulson. Stand by for S.H.I.E.L.D. debriefing. All information to be discussed here is classified and may only be discussed among agents granted clearance by the S.H.I.E.L.D. Director.
Now it's time for your scheduled debriefing. I'm Director SP.
I'm Agent Lauren.
And I'm Consultant Michelle.
Welcome to the Legends of S.H.I.E.L.D. It's a Marvel Comic Universe fan show. This show is recorded on Sunday, July 22nd, 2018, live from the Legends of S.H.I.E.L.D. studios and broadcast astral plane wide via www.geeks.live. Ladies, happy National Hammock Day.
Oh, I wish I had a hammock.
They seem like they're comfortable.
I've slept in one before when I went camping years and years ago. I think I might have still been, it was early college or late high school. It's nice. Yeah.
We have a foldable one that we have on our back patio. I can tell you, sleeping on it or laying on it just normally on your back is fine, but then when you go to your stomach, it's a little bit of weird curve to it. So
yeah, if you're a stomach sleeper, it's less than ideal.
Indeed. But it's National Hammock Day, so go grab a hammock and go out and enjoy it and listen to Legends of S.H.I.E.L.D. while you're enjoying your hammock in the great outdoors. Or I guess you can have hammocks indoors now too.
Yeah. Yeah, there's some sites that sell them.
Get a hammock, it's worth it.
Yeah, they're fun.
Legends of S.H.I.E.L.D. is a fan-based podcast on the ABC television show Marvel's Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., which just entered into its 9th week of hiatus following the season 5 finale. The multiple Marvel Netflix series, Legion on FX, which season 2 is continuing today, the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and the Marvel comic book universes in general.
Because of having soda with your grandma.
If you'd like to talk to us about soda, in quotes, with your grandma, you can find us at our website, legendsofshield.com.
If you would like to share a story about having special drinks with your grandparents, you can leave us a voicemail at 844-THE-BUS-1, 844-843-2871.
If you'd like to share stories of old-timey spiked drinks with your grandparents or other relatives, you can find us on Facebook at Legends of S.H.I.E.L.D. Podcast.
If you're like me and have a story similar to Lenny's, you can tweet us at Legends of S.H.I.E.L.D.
You can see us drinking our totally not special sodas because it's the morning right now on YouTube at youtube.com/GonnaGeek.
If you have an Amazon device, tell it to enable Legends of S.H.I.E.L.D. skill.
And remember, Legends of S.H.I.E.L.D. is a proud member of the GonnaGeek.com network.
Michelle, we're going to have to delve into that grandma story at a later date. It sounds very intriguing, maybe in a post-credit scene to Legends of S.H.I.E.L.D. or something like that. So, yeah. And oh, by the way, Lauren, it's the morning, but that doesn't necessarily mean all of our drinks are adult beverage free.
Yeah, I'm trying to be good right now, though.
Okay. Fair enough.
But day drinking, there's no shame to day drinking. Every once in a while, mimosas, Bloody Marys, hell of a lot of fun. But yeah, right now, I got work to do, so sticking to flavored water.
Woohoo! Yay for work. And by the way, talking about work, Agent Haley is off today. She is doing what she does on the weekend, and which probably includes work, which is unfortunate, but she will not be with us this week. She hopefully will be back next week. And right now, we're going to get into the podcast main event. We're talking Legion. Legion Chapter 13 aired Tuesday, May 1st, 2018 on the FX network and earned a 0.434 rating. Legion, by the way, was renewed for a third season, as we've been saying all along here, on June 1st, 2018. And looking at the season 2 ratings, it is not the highest, but it's not the lowest. It's part of one of the highest. The pilot episode, or the premiere episode, was 669, which was Chapter 9. And then it's hovering around the 4.43, except for Chapter 11. And I guess that's might have been why it was bankrupt. So we look forward to seeing how these ratings continue to either stay or go down, basically, for the rest of the season. And it is renewed, so it really doesn't matter, but we are keeping our eyes on the ratings. Lauren, who was the creative team lead, aka the director, for Chapter 13?
This episode was directed by Tim Mielants. I have no idea if I'm pronouncing that correctly, but it looks correct. Who has 12 directing credits since all the way back in 2005, including 2 episodes of The Tunnel, 6 of Peaky Blinders, 4 of The Terror, which I have on my DVR and still need to watch, and 3 of Legion.
Michelle, who was the writing part of the creative team?
This episode was written by co-showrunners, co-creators of the show, Noah Hawley and Nathaniel Halpern. They have written each episode of the season except for Chapter 19.
So we'll have to get to Chapter 19 in a few weeks, about 6 weeks or so, a couple of months. We will get there. And yes, they are the masterminds behind the story for this season. And I actually am intrigued by this. We haven't really talked about this as a TV trope of what is going on in TV today, but you take a look at a series like Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., where we do, and it's a smattering of different writers. Yes, it's usually the same writers. Once in a while, you get somebody brought in, but it's not the same 2 writers, same 3 writers for each episode for the 20 episode season or something like that. This was done basically by the 2 of them for the entire season. And I think it works out pretty good because you can drop hints of the plot as you go along and it not be relevant to that specific episode, but in like 5-6 episodes, it actually pays off. It's a little frustrating to the viewer not to get instant gratification, but if you're binging it after the fact, I can see it pretty good. So Lauren, what do you think? Do you think this is a good way to run a series?
It depends on the type of show it is. For something like this, where it's this weird experimental thing where they want a consistent tone all the way through, yes, I think it's pretty good. Babylon 5, I know, did the same thing. The showrunner, I'm blanking out on whether his first name is James or John, Michael Straczynski, JMS, wanted a consistent tone with very tightly scripted episodes for the 3rd season because it was so pivotal to the plot. So he wrote every single episode. So with this, because it's so weird and because they're going for this very specific tone, I think it's very advantageous to have one person, 1 or 2 people directing the feel of the episode in terms of the writing. For something more like S.H.I.E.L.D., where it's an ensemble show, they have a direction that they want it to go, a feel for what they want it to be, but it's not as tightly scripted. I think the larger writer pool is kind of a better choice.
Michelle, what are your thoughts?
I agree about having a show like Legion, having a very tight creative team, because you do want that same feel. Same thing with Stranger Things. It's very much the Duffers, and they have that nice, consistent tone throughout because they sort of see it as one huge movie that's just divided into chapters. What's interesting, a big show that has one writer is Vikings, and I am blanking on his name.
Oh.
Hearst?
You have 20 episode seasons. They do divide it up into 10 episodes each. The next 10's coming in November. but he has written every single one of them. And Vikings is a huge show with battle scenes and complex choreography. So it's really interesting. Like, it works on something like S.H.I.E.L.D. or Arrow, having that nice big writer's room and such. But even something like Vikings, which is very, you want to tell that family story in a way, even though it's such a big show, it's still a family story about brothers arguing and all that type of stuff. I think it's just depends on the theme and the feel of the show.
Yeah, it's Michael Hurst is the writer. He's also the showrunner. He was actually he was planning to go into an academic career. So for the shows that he's done like this and The Tudors and stuff like that, I can see him wanting that really tight creative control because it drives academics crazy when people get historical inaccuracies.
Oh, yeah.
So I can see him wanting that sort of control of, okay, I know we're going to get inaccuracies, but let me control how we do this.
Yeah. Okay. Well, we'll get into this in the future if we notice this sort of thing going on with other series. But in the meantime, we're back on chapter 13 of Legion, and oftentimes we equate the title of the episode to the theme of the episode. So in that case, Lauren, what does chapter 13 mean?
Well, it's the number that comes after 12 and before 14.
All right. So again, we're stuck with this numeric sequential sort of titles. Okay. We'll have to deal with it. All right, Michelle, you have been very kind into guiding us through this because this is your second time watching through it, but it's the first time for people like Haley, Lauren, and myself. You have kept under your hat what happened in this episode, so kudos on you. We did not go out and seek spoilers, so this was a complete surprise when Lauren and I actually watched the episode for this. But what is the lesson of the episode?
The lesson is conspiracy, but more to the point of seeking patterns. It is true humans are very pattern-seeking animals. We want to see faces in things. We want to think certain things happened for a reason. I'm here for a reason. This happened for a reason. And if you get very stuck on that idea of there's a pattern to my life, it can kind of close your mind off to new ideas. Part of the lesson actually states, so strong is our belief that a pattern must exist that the human mind will reject the pieces that don't fit. Mm-hmm. And unfortunately, we are seeing a lot of that in our culture in America right now, where people are just, no, it's just this way, and everything else, whether it's fact-based and a whole bunch of evidence and hundreds of people support it and realize this is actually happening. There are people who are just so tied up into that one particular idea that they don't see anything else. And this applies to David in future episodes. That's all I'm going to say.
The phenomenon, it's actually called pareidolia, where you're perceiving a pattern where none exists. In particular, when you hear voices and random noises, like when, you see ghost hunters going out and recording tapes and they're like, oh, I hear a voice in this tape. That's an example of pareidolia. Or when people see, like the example they give, Jesus and toast, or the face on Mars. The Deep Dream program is an example of learned pareidolia in a computer program. There's all these rocks and things, all these rock formations that they're given names like the Old Man of the Mountain, things like that, because we see something that looks like a face. And yeah, they get into the fact that evolutionarily, it is an advantage because you want to be able to see or hear something. Pattern recognition is advantageous because you want to be able to see or hear something like, okay, that thing looks like it's alive. It might be a danger. But that same pattern recognition, because we are always seeking patterns, it's, again, you seek patterns where there are none. And that can also be dangerous.
It can. And I had a little bit of an issue equating what the lesson was specifically to this episode. But Michelle, you said it's for the future, so that's good. I would be lost in this entire season if it wasn't for the lessons, because they give some sort of bounds to it. Because especially after we see in this episode, anything's on the table. And wow. So let's talk about that. How messed up this episode was to watch, how beautifully crafted it really was, but just how messed up it is and how it just really plays with your mind. Oh, Lauren, what did you think?
Okay, I want to give another shout out to the music department on here. I watched the last episode and this one, not quite back to back. I watched the last one last night, and this one this morning. But the soundtrack picks are amazing. The covers of the particular sound, the songs they choose are wonderful. And just the sound department giving you the unnerving, unsettling ambient music choices that they do are wonderful. Also, I kind of picked up immediately that always something's not right, but when they brought in Lenny, I loved Aubrey Plaza on Parks and Recreation. I watch Parks and Recreation constantly. It's one of my, happy place shows. I feel bad. I watch the flu episode of Parks and Recreation. So I know Aubrey Plaza has brown eyes. I saw her with the blue eyes and I'm like, wait a minute, something's not right here. And through this whole time when they're like, okay, you're still working for her. Whose body is that? Whose body is that? I'm like, okay, the body's important. And then when she keeps wanting to see David, and I cussed when it hit me. I'm like, oh no, we haven't seen Amy in a while. Who is somebody that they can hurt David with? And I just about halfway through the episode was when I realized it, and I spent the rest of the episode just in dread.
I didn't pick up on it at all. Now, in my defense, I was watching the episode from a bit far away and I didn't have my right glasses on. So and it was in the light. So I really didn't see the eyes, but I did know that Lenny her body had been gone, right? So I didn't know where her body came from. And I knew that was going to be something that came out of this. And the whole interrogation room upside down, that should have been a clue to me that something was really, really, really wrong. But I didn't clue into it until it actually happened. Well, let me take that back. I clued into it the moment that we started seeing Amy on screen. I'm like, why are we seeing Amy? Oh no. Oh no. And then when they're sitting down at their kitchen table and Ben, I think that's his name, right? Amy's husband is Ben. Ben said, oh, what's that moment right before you think something's going to happen? Oh yeah, dread. And I was like, oh no, they're actually going to do it. And oh man, it just toyed with my emotions and my perception of the show and everything. So well done, but it's messed up. And I don't think I'll ever watch the episode again because of it, but well done.
I have to admit that I knew that Lenny's body wasn't Lenny's body from the beginning. And I think my brain was just like, don't even think about whose body that is. It can't be that horrible. It can't be. But now we see why Farouk wanted to invade D3 because he stole this device. And we learn that the device can take basically the DNA and graft it onto a living human in so much pain. Just seeing their faces and the screams, and even though, and there's that music, "Don't Come Around Here No More." It was just spine cringy, skin goosebump, bad feeling. And the cruelty of it I don't really want to. I don't want to spoil. I don't want to spoil the next. I don't want to spoil an episode.
But it gets worse.
It gets interesting. That's all I'm going to say when it comes to Lenny being in Amy's body. Yeah. But I love the way this episode was crafted, because in the beginning, when you have Oliver, they're driving in the Bentley and he's talking to Farouk. And it's like, well, do I have to dig up dirt? Will it take a long time? I don't want to get my suit dirty. And they've been teasing this whole Farouk finding his body. And at first, like, oh, finally, Farouk finds his body. But then it keeps cutting back to Lenny and questioning Lenny. And it's just like, why are they questioning Lenny? And then finally you hear the word her.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just like, wait, what are they talking about her for? And then just realizing that whole part of when Lenny says, he took me out of my drawer and put me in something, and then I woke up. It's just like, oh, man.
Very painful indeed. And that's the crux of what happened. And then when our protagonist, for the lack of a better term would you call him a protagonist?
David?
Yeah, David. Would you call him the protagonist of this series?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Well, I mean, it depends.
Protagonist does not equate good person. Protagonist is just the lead of the story.
Okay. So he's definitely the lead of the story. So when David finds out about what is going on and who this actually is, because he's basically reading her mind, I think that's how he figures it out. He just, oh man, he just falls apart. And he doesn't make it out of the room, right? He stays in the room with her. They don't let him out. Is that right?
Well, he kind of goes backwards and hits the door, and it's almost like Lenny instinctively knows how to hold David and like calm him down with his head, like the way she's touching his head and everything, and trying to calm him down, because he is extremely distraught. And he says, I am like, this is enough, Farouk. I am after you. Right.
If anything else didn't cause him to do it, this was it. Now, why is Farouk antagonizing David by doing this? Because is he putting David off kilter? Is that what he's doing? I mean, Lauren, Michelle, you know what's going on, but Lauren, what do you think?
I think absolutely yes. It's psychological warfare.
Okay. The fog and friction of war, a little Sun Tzu going on with Farouk. And in the middle of everything, let's back up a second, because Lenny is being interrogated in this upside down room. And all she wants to do is talk to David, and she has to go through several hurdles before she gets to David, one of which is Clark. But the next one is Potolny. And when she was talking with Potolny and Potolny was trying to reach into her mind, there was a vision of the stupid little tar bug. So some misperception, some delusion has now entered into Potolny's mind.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was very interesting about how he sees like the Vermilions, and he sees Fukuyama, but then inside Fukuyama is a bird, and he gets sort of trapped. And then when he comes back to the present, he's actually choking Lenny. Yeah, what happens to him is very interesting. Again, I don't want to spoil anything, but this is the start of a chain of events for him.
I think the whole season's been a chain of events, but yeah, okay. I could see this being a key moment because of the whole tar bug thing. Yeah. Well, wow. Well, Lauren, what else do you want to point out about the episode?
The whole Oliver and Farouk conversations.
About Oliver saying, I'm going to kill you, and the anticipation with Farouk?
It's more, we have like little moments. How do I even put this? Oliver is being very kind of cold, but then he'll have these little like breakthrough moments with the, yeah, I'm going to kill you, or him remembering Melanie's name. And the, here's the hint. And no, I'm not stupid enough to tell you that I know your weakness, but here's the hint. And it's really, I mean, I'm looking forward to seeing how that ties into it, because the whole, what's 1 + 1, 2, wrong.
Yeah.
Which I'm assuming is some sort of mental trick, because I don't know.
Well, I think in a lot of cases with life, like if you add two things together, the sum of the two things could be more than just the two things. That's what my immediate take was from it. Whether that's true or not, I have no idea.
You're probably right, but it could also be because he's a psychic. It could be some sort of mental trap. I don't know.
Yeah, it could be.
Or again, it could be a combination of both. You add two powerful psychics together and you get something huge and bizarre and wild. I don't know.
Yeah, we've already seen it happen when Farouk was within David, so I can see it happening in the future.
Yeah, there were a whole lot of, again, the whole 1 + 1 is not 2 thing. You had a whole lot of one-on-one conversations in this episode. David and Lenny and Oliver and Farouk. And it's both of them just sort of feeling each other out. And I thought that was interesting.
Michelle, is there anything that you'd like to point out with the episode that we haven't discussed already?
Yes, two things. Farouk mentioning that lions don't worry about killing for their food. Again, that whole, he actually says homo superior. And Oliver seeing Melanie, but Melanie not being in D3. I'm going to tell you, I know it's just this very split second, maybe 2 seconds on screen. But remember that he sees her, and when he sees her, she is not in D3. She is someplace else.
That's a good point. And also, we haven't talked about the fact that Amy, before she was taken over by Farouk and transformed into Lenny, she was talking about some sort of vision about being the Admiral or one of the Vermilions or both or something like that. I didn't understand what that was about.
Yeah, that's freaky.
She was talking about the basket being backwards on her head, which is obviously the Admiral.
Yeah. And that she dreamed she was one of those
Vermilions.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was weird.
It was. All right. So we'll continue to talk about this as we go along. Obviously, there's things that we just can't figure out. And of course, Michelle's sitting over there kind of smug, like, yeah, I've already seen it. But it's beneficial even for her to go through it a second time. And we're going to hit it again with chapter 14 next week. That's Legion Season 2, Episode 6. It's kind of weird that the chapters aren't in tune with the actual episode numbers from the season. But in the end, I guess it doesn't matter. So chapter 14 next week. In the meantime, Michelle, if people actually want to go out and listen to another great podcast on the Gonna Geek Network, there's a bunch of other geeky stuff out there, isn't there?
Yes, we have over 20 shows. One of them includes the Intellectual Podcast, episode 221, Neil and Jana Halford return. San Diego Comic-Con 2018 is upon us. David and Whitney chatted up with returning guests Neil and Jenna Halford as they are preparing to debut the second episode of their audio drama Uncharted Regions starring Gigi Edsley at Comic-Con. Neil is also moderating a panel for podcasters at Comic-Con called Heroes at the Mic and has graciously invited David to be on the panel. Hear the BTS stories of bringing Uncharted Regions to life after many years of starts and stops and ventures down the side alleyways of life.
And we'll look forward to hearing from Dave Dawson how his podcast panel went. It was actually a Gonna Geek member, finally made it onto a San Diego Comic-Con panel. We've got that in our feather in our cap now. And with that, let's move on into some news.
Well, our first news item isn't all that great, and it has to deal with James Gunn.
Okay, so the short of it is James Gunn was fired from Guardians of the Galaxy 3 over offensive tweets. The longer version of it is there is a conservative columnist, I guess, Mike Cernovich, who got mad at James Gunn, started digging through his tweets, found some from years and years and years ago that were the really try hard, but very gross tweets about rape, pedophilia, a lot of anti-trans stuff, and got a lot of his followers to bring him up and bring him to Disney's attention. And Disney fired him. The thing is, Disney has to have known about him because people were really angry about this back when he was hired. I was angry about these and that whole frackable superheroes list back in the day because it was gross. The thing is, he used to work for Troma, which has made its brand on being gross and offensive. And while I don't think those tweets should be defended, and while he has said, basically he put out a statement, I guess yesterday, day before, saying, I accept this. I think that the fact that somebody has taken advantage of the current zeitgeist to do something to somebody who got them mad is really wrong. Because you see stuff like this in the gaming industry lately with the ArenaNet firing of a woman who got mad at some people who were harassing her. And they brought up old tweets and stuff to ArenaNet. And you see this in a lot of other industries. And while people who do and say horrible things should be held accountable, I think that there's also Sean Gunn's tweets that I linked in the thread. And I'm linking them. I'm not going to read all of them. But he's saying, I saw firsthand as he went from worrying about softening his edge for a larger audience to realizing that his edge wasn't as useful of a tool as he thought it was, that his gift for storytelling was something better. I saw that he was more open-hearted than the guy who needed to get a rise out of people by making nasty or offensive jokes, or whatever you choose to call him. I don't think his bluer material was ever his funniest, and neither does Mom. In many respects, this change in my brother was reflected in the change that the Guardians go through. Blah, blah, blah. This isn't new information, by the way. It's all stuff James has explained many times in interviews in more detail and more eloquently. It's not some new spin. It's always been part of the story. So, again, those tweets are gross. The stuff that he said previously was gross. I think there has been a lot of evidence that being exposed to a larger audience and a lot more people has made him a better person. And I do think people change. And purity culture does frighten me because people do grow and change. That said, people don't grow and change in a week. So I think we need to hold people more accountable for stuff that they have done and said recently than stuff that they've done and said like a decade ago or almost a decade ago, so long as it is not a repeating pattern of behavior.
What gets me is this is also the company that they hired. So Disney owns Marvel and ABC. ABC put out the Roseanne show. Roseanne has a history of racist, anti-LGBTQ. She dressed up as Hitler one time and had these cookies, but all those things were before the show. She said that she didn't mean them. And then she did this apology and everything. And then the show, Roseanne goes on. And then after show airs and such like that, she makes another racist remark. So again, ABC, Disney hired someone who had a past that everyone knew about, basically, believed her when she said, I'm not like this anymore. And then she broke that when she made those remarks about a woman. That's breaking that promise that I changed, that, basically saying, well, okay, you haven't changed. You are still like this. So now we have to cut ties with you. This is a case of, I've done awful things and I have paid the consequences in the past. Should I have to pay for the consequences again? James Gunn has realized his problem and he's grown from it. When I read the headline, I'm like, oh, did he say something now? And then learning that it's from all these years ago, that it's not a recent comment. That is where I'm having the problem with it, that this is a different, people want to compare this to Roseanne. It's like, no, the James Gunn is all in the past. He did not make a recent offensive remark, as opposed to Roseanne, who did make a recent offensive remark.
I think it should also be noted that Disney is still choosing to employ Johnny Depp, who is a domestic abuser, and Josh Brolin, who beat Diane Lane. I didn't know about this until recently, or if I did, I forgot, but until recently. But in 2004, he was arrested for beating his, I guess, then wife, Diane Lane. He said that he's stopped drinking since then, that there hasn't been any more incidents since then, but that is still a mark against him. And he works for Marvel and I guess now the Fox Disney thing.
Regardless of which side that you are falling on this, it's important to know, if you're listening to this podcast, that we're in the age of social media, and anything that you say on social media can come back to you at some time in the future. We've seen this with job searches, with Facebook predominantly, but there are other avenues as well now. And we're going to continue to see it. And it's just a reminder to be careful on what you say on the internet. And a lot of people have been saying that maybe James Gunn should have deleted those tweets that were made so long ago, just so that they weren't there, so that it was proof that he didn't agree with that viewpoint anymore or not. But it is what it is now. And whether you delete them or not, screen caps are always there. We've seen that as well.
There's a saying, the internet is forever.
Yeah. Just be careful on what you actually put out there. You might think it's just knee-jerk reaction on a particular issue, but in fact, it's a cultural statement that, depending on where you are going to be going in the future, and this is not in the future, could be 5 years, 10 years, 20 years from now, but you're always going to be labeled with whatever you say, even if you're a teenager. And if that social media platform still exists 20 years from now, which I don't think it will, but if it does, that could come back on you. So just be aware of that as you personally put things on the internet.
Well, moving on to better news. When it comes to S.H.I.E.L.D., Clark Gregg is actually going to direct the season premiere. The episode is called Missing Pieces, and it was written by showrunners Jed Whedon and Marissa Tankaron. And on a good note, Deke Shaw is alive. Jeff Ward has been promoted to series regular, so we are going to be blessed with Lemons and Zima for the next season of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.
All the fandom and fanfiction olds like me are giggling like crazy at the mention of Lemons right now. So that again, I have to wonder if that was on purpose from Because on the one hand, it does make sense for space, citrus, this is a very important thing. But on the other hand, from the fandom perspective, lemon was a very, very spicy fan fiction.
So I'm just taking a stab and wondering here if, first of all, Clark Gregg did an amazing job directing the episode last season. So I have no qualms with him directing an episode. I look forward, actually, to seeing it. But I'm wondering, because we've been speculating on what's going to happen with Agent May and Agent Coulson. I'm wondering if this is a sneaky way to keep Clark Gregg around as known part of the project before it's actually revealed that he's still a part of the season or not.
Oh, yeah, that whole, we're not going to tell you if Coulson's dead, but here's Clark Gregg directing, so Coulson could be in the episode?
Yeah, just keep him around on set. That's why he's continuing to come in, that sort of thing. And, oh, by the way, he's actually in the season. And just not telling us that he's a season regular for the next season. Yeah, I could see it the other way, too. Just, hey, he's moving into the director's chair. But, I mean, I could see it the other way. Marvel actually trying to pull a feint like this. And if they do, and if they're successful, cool. Because I'd like to have Agent Coulson around. Anyway.
So, Lauren, we have some more Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. news. We have character breakdowns.
We do indeed. So, for those who don't know, as we are recording, which is July 22nd, it is Comic-Con, San Diego Comic-Con weekend. And so we're getting a lot of Marvel news, mostly comics, but some of the cinematic stuff. And one of the things that was released was character breakdowns. So we have things like Jocko, a male in his 30s, open ethnicity, height of 6'4" or taller. Silent mercenary who has both brains and brawn, who sounds hyper intelligent when he speaks. Pax, younger male in his 20s, who is a dangerous mercenary like Jocko, but has a humorous streak to him. Butterfly, a female in her 20s, described as unpredictable, aloof, spacey, but nonetheless lethal. Like Jocko and Pax, Butterfly is stated to be a recurring guest star throughout the season. Professor L, a brilliant teacher in his 60s who has a positive outlook on humanity, but at the same time is disgruntled, bitter, and a mess of a person outside. Professor L will be a recurring guest star as well. Agent Damon, a new S.H.I.E.L.D. soldier who is described as being handsome, likable, cool, and funny, but unlike the rest of the characters in this breakdown, and like most S.H.I.E.L.D. agents that appear on the show, Agent Damon is only slated to appear for one episode. So do y'all think this is codenames?
Definitely.
Yeah. Except for Agent Damon, because we know that's Matt Damon.
Matt Damon. Well, I mean, he's already appeared in 2 Marvel properties so far.
Yeah, why not on TV, too?
Deadpool and Thor. So, I mean, why don't we just get him for TV?
I like it.
That would be really funny. Iron Fist Season 2 is going to premiere September 7th on Netflix. In X-Men news.
And that's all I have to say about that.
Yeah, as I said in our group text, who asked for this?
And as I replied back, it must have been DC Comics.
The only thing I will say is they're bringing in Typhoid Mary, who is a Daredevil villain. And I like Typhoid Mary, but why an Iron Fist? Why?
It'll be a long time before we get to that on the show anyway.
Colleen Wing deserves better.
The Gifted Season 2 trailer arrived. The 3-minute trailer catches up with every main character from Season 1 while expanding the world they are part of. Witness the introduction of the Morlocks. Yes! As well as the villainous group known as the Inner Circle, which may or may not have ties to the Hellfire Club. I hope it has ties to the Hellfire Club. The show returns for Season 2 Tuesday, September 25th at 8 p.m. Eastern.
Does it seem to y'all that this year is moving really fast?
Oh, I know. I'm like, I can't believe it's almost August. Like, dude.
It's all the Marvel movies that they've been pumping out because we've already had so many. I mean, if you include Deadpool, we've had 4 of them already. Yeah, just pumping straight through. Okay, so I'm going to drop a bomb here. The Gifted Season 2, I don't know if I'm going to actually watch it or not. It's going to depend on how much time I have this fall. But I'm calling a lot of the TV that I watch, and where it was at the second half of last season, it was like right on the cusp for me, whether I wanted to keep it or not. So I might slide into this one a few episodes in just to see if it's progressed or not. So I don't know. We'll see.
I didn't put it as this in the show notes, but I just learned Cloak and Dagger got renewed for season 2. So if you're watching that, it's been renewed. So yay. And for our last bit of news, we have something about Deadpool.
Yes. So again, Deadpool at Comic-Con. There was actually just a panel, I guess, this morning. So look that up online. Ryan Reynolds wants a future Deadpool movie to explore Deadpool's sexuality. So in the comics, Deadpool is very pansexual. Even, the director of the first Deadpool movie, Tim Miller, said Deadpool is very pansexual. And we've gotten little hints of that with the whole, him feeling up Colossus and things like that. But it's never been like explicitly explored, like the whole giving Negasonic Teenage Warhead a girlfriend thing. Hey, why not give Deadpool a boyfriend, or him dating Vanessa and someone else? That sort of, I don't know.
I think I'm going to like anything that comes out of Deadpool at this point because I've been shocked at everything and laughed my butt off at everything. So I think Ryan Reynolds is doing good things. And I hope that in the future that the movies don't have the turmoil behind the scenes as Deadpool 2 did. But I think we can all agree that Deadpool 2 was just as funny as the first one.
And I talked about this before, but that Deadpool musical parody actually kind of does go into his pansexuality because he hits on Tony Stark and all these others and such. So you can get a taste for it on YouTube with that Deadpool, the musical parody.
I still want to see Ryan Reynolds and Robert Downey Jr. playing that out on screen. That'd be awesome. All right. And that's it for the news. We're going to move on into the feedback.
We got some feedback on Twitter. We heard from @Mr. Pericles.
All right. So again, more news from Comic-Con. Marvel's What Ifs comics are returning this fall, to which he said, Spider-Man Punisher has my attention. So yeah, the What If comics are basically, and yeah, they're exactly what they say on the cover. What if this happened? What if Spider-Man focuses on what would have happened if Flash Thompson was the one bitten by the radioactive spider instead of Peter Parker? And what if Punisher? What if after the death of Uncle Ben, Peter becomes a vengeance-filled vigilante that criminals fear and he isn't afraid to kill this time? In What If Magic, it focuses on Ilyana Rasputin, who wants nothing to do with the X-Men or New Mutants after her time in Limbo. What if Ghost Rider? It apparently involves a black metal band, this sounds amazing, by the way, who venture into the Marvel Universe and meet the new Ghost Rider, Robbie Reyes, who you might remember from a previous season of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. And then What If Thor? This has Odin losing his battle against the Frost Giants, who then adopt Thor, rather than, Odin adopting Loki. So this looks amazing. The cover is awesome. Finally, we have What If X-Men? Or .exe men. This is a cyberpunk tale, and it has Domino and Cable on the cover, and looks really cool. Cyberpunk X-Men, sign me up.
I admit I've been culling my comics lately, and I will go to the comic book store and I will pick up these from the stacks, and I will see if I want to read them or not. So that's pretty much where I am with anything new these days. And I know what ifs are like one-offs or whatever, but
yeah, what ifs tend to be hit or miss, but these all look really fun.
And fun is where I want my comics to be, really.
Yeah, right now I'm very angry at Marvel because their comics aren't fun right now for the most part. There's a few titles that are, but I mean, lately I've been reading a bunch of indie comics and honestly, some DC comics.
I got another Port of Earth this past week and stuff like that. So it's pretty good. Lauren, have you picked up the new X-23? They canceled the all new Wolverine, but they picked up X-23.
I have not. I know there's a lot of controversy over it because of the whole, she discarded her identity as X-23 because it was given to her by a lab and she, grew up and became Wolverine, and now they're kind of forcing her back into that identity, and because God forbid we be without Wolverine.
Yeah, go figure.
But I do love Laura Kinney, and I really love what they did with her and Gabby and everything. The whole Orphan Black Wolverine thing. I loved it.
Great. It was a fun series.
It really was.
And we also heard from @Andy Migna.
So this is a whole conversation thread. I usually try to pick 3, but because this is a conversation thread, I only picked these 2 from Twitter this week. In regards to the whole James Gunn thing. Well, this came out of left field. Disney too sensitive? I don't know the details of what he wrote then and in which context, to which the operator said, the tweets are pretty gross, so I can see why they let him go. Andy Migna. Disney for sure knew about them before. So why they only decided to not work with them anymore now after the outcry of those right-wing groups, which we brought up. Operator. Disney might have known, but the public likely didn't. Once the tweets are all together, the way they were presented, it didn't leave Disney with a lot of options. Again, also true. Andy, if only that way of conduct would apply to other fields in the working world, which, again, wouldn't it be nice? To which Op said, right? And to which Andy replied with a GIF that I had to look up, and it says so he says. I have no idea if I pronounced that right, but I guess it's German for that's how it goes.
Probably. Andy, you'll have to clarify that with us because I don't understand the meaning of that either.
But yeah, the thing is, because entertainment is such a high visibility industry, it's really easy for people to sway, to hit people where, again, in the pocket. And as soon as Disney was like, people might boycott us over this, we might look bad, that's when they let him go. Unfortunately, I've seen it so many times in just smaller working environments of people who say and do horrible things that because they're friends with the boss or because just whatever reason, they stick around, they don't face consequences, whatever. So while higher profile, industries are having this big moment of accountability, it would be really nice if the smaller places also did.
Yeah, right. Like there's a standard that is the same for everybody. Although with Disney, and I have no idea if this was part of their decision or not, but I could see coming into the fall. So as we're recording, it's late July and NFL training camps are coming up. And there's this whole big controversy in the NFL over the past couple of years over standing for the national anthem or kneeling for the national anthem before the games. And the league has made some changes to what is going on, but it's not going to satisfy everybody. So that gens up this whole right versus left political thing. And I don't know if Disney took a look at that and where we are in the year and just didn't want to have to deal with that versus the NFL. I mean, it could be, you never know what's concerning in their minds. So anyway.
No, this is the thing about the NFL. You do a peaceful protest that is within your First Amendment rights. But hey, if you beat up your girlfriend or your wife or you're accused of attempted rape, hey, here, go ahead, have a job. And by the way, have a pay raise. It's like, no, it's like,
yep.
No.
Yeah, that. And then let's let's cover up a huge medical scandal too. Let's just keep, abusing our players in this way, as long as the people in charge get their money.
And I have strong feelings on that after personally having to go through the whole concussion thing. But you're making my point, where it's such a hot button issue that Disney might have been like, we don't want anything to do with any other hot button issue right now. So I don't know if that was part of their consideration or not, but you're absolutely right. It should be standard across everything. But conversations like these are going on all over the place right now. And if you have something to say about it, make sure that you make your opinions known, because Disney, in my opinion, is doing this as a reactionary thing to being boycotted, which is in their pocketbooks. So if you want to show them, where you stand, maybe state another boycott against the James Gunn firing. I mean, it's the only way that they're going to change their minds. It's all money based. So, okay. All right. Do we have any other feedback for the week?
Not at the moment.
Okay. Nope. We're going to go ahead and take this opportunity to get in our Bentley convertible and drive in the desert this one out. Well, thank you very much, ladies, for allowing me this therapy session on the Legion, and I sorely needed it this week. So thank you very much for that. And thank you, listener, for staying with us as we continue on this Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. hiatus, this major hiatus, now into its 9th week.
Thank you so much for listening, for sending us your feedback, for tweeting at us. We really, really appreciate it, and we love you.
Yes, thank you for listening and participating. Again, we would love to hear from you, especially about Legion. Do you like this season? Are you as tripped out by it as some other people are? It'd be great to hear from you about it.
Indeed. And with that, until next time, I'm Director SP.
I'm Agent Lauren.
And I'm Consultant Michelle.
See you guys next week. Bye.
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 Thank you for listening. If you want to leave us feedback, go to gonnageek.com and you will find all our contact information and other shows. You can also visit legendsofshield.com, where you'll find our complete archive of podcasts. The music heard on this podcast is by Kevin MacLeod, found at incompetech.com, and also artists on pond5.com and audiojungle.net. The opinions heard on this podcast are those of the individual hosts and do not represent Stargate Pioneer Productions, Legends of S.H.I.E.L.D., or Gonna Geek. Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. is the property of the Disney Corporation, Marvel Studios, and ABC. No infringement is intended. Legends of S.H.I.E.L.D. is copyright 2018.